Hello and welcome to Outlaw Bookseller with me, Stephen E. Andrews, writer, collector, bookseller. And today I'm going to review the new book by Adam Roberts, which has come out this week, and it is entitled Lake of Darkness. And here it is. There we go. What a handsome hardcover from Golax. Probably the best thing Golax will do this year. Probably the most important SF novel that will be published this year. Adam really has no competition these days, or next to nothing, save for his mate Dave Hutchinson and the very wonderful Chris Beckett. Another sterling work from the best British science fiction writer under the age of 65. So I'm going to talk about this today with you. I'm also going to show you the rest of my Adam Roberts collection. I did a review a while ago of Land of the Headless and showed you and talked over the first 5-6 books, but I thought I may as well show you the lot so you can see the breadth of his work and how beautiful they are. So this is yet another great singleton. The thing with Adam, he understands consummately how the finest SF works are all singletons. SF works best by avoiding unnecessary sequels, and he understands how familiarity with characters who return, with concepts and settings that repeat, how these soon grow stale and comforting and dull to the true SF reader who wants to step forward and discover the new and get the bucket of water in the face that I used to talk about. So, what is Lake of Darkness about? Is set some 500 years from now in a system of human colonized utopian worlds where there is somewhere for everybody can fit in somewhere, and Amity is kind of taken as a default setting. This is a tale of black holes, of murder, of physics, geometry and theology. The book is told by a non-intrusive, omniscient narrator. Their voice surfaces only intermittently, and it's addressing us now in our time. So the reader begins by guessing, who are they? Who is this narrator? Will their voice provide the quantum punch of a conceptual breakthrough at the climax of the novel? Will the identity behind that voice be the twist that we're looking for? Well, maybe. Our story begins with two starships orbiting a black hole. One of the starships is called Oubliette, which is a French word meaning an inescapable shaft-like dungeon, rather like the one in Edgar Allan Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum, I guess you could say. And its captain, Captain Rain, has gone mad. He murders the crew, and when apprehended, he claims he has been in contact with the Gentleman, an extraterrestrial being who lives beyond the event horizon of the singularity itself. Impossible, you say. Nothing can live within a black hole. Information is drawn in, but nothing can escape. Rain is an enigma, a throwback to the age of serial killers in the 20th and early 21st century. In a keen parody of Silence of the Lambs, of Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter, a young female historian interrogates Rain in a virtual space, but she finds that something is wrong, something is frightening. This is a book with an ensemble cast which pacily unfurls at a clip, scattering ideas like diamond stars falling from the spiral arm of a galaxy. Its predominant characters take the baton of story as Roberts hands it to them, and the initial scenario recedes only to loop in and redux to return later. And then a new setting is foregrounded, possibilities for future building ripple and coalesce into view. We visit utopian worlds, including one where a new focus character becomes part of an heroic enactment of one of Jules Verne's novels. And this reminded me of several of Adam's earlier books, notably, let me see what I have here, notably 20 Trillion Leagues Under the Sea, which is great fun. I really recommend this. Fantastic novel, excellent stuff. And it also reminded me of a book he did called Splinter, which was his own take on Verne's book Off on a Comment, and I'll show you that later on because it's a limited edition and quite uncommon. So the immersive heterotopias that we visit, and this term of course is redolent of Le Guin's The Dispossessed, and Delaney's Magisterial Triton, one of my favourite utopia novels. They reveal worms in the apple, as there always is in utopias, utopia and dystopia being different sides of the same coin, sometimes the same side of a Borgesian coin, which has no other side, no other face. You can only see the single face. Because these pampered Futurians, coddled by their AIs, are illiterate. And the reader perhaps looks down upon these Eloi. They have short attention spans, confusion about the past, what is fiction, what is not fiction. And in these sideswipes, Adam Roberts uses them to remind us that the far future will not be an extension of now, but a place where the people will not converse like us. Lake of Darkness thus has a satisfying sense of the novel in the way that Charles Stross's Accelerando does. And in Accelerando, it's a kind of Victorian-style family saga, subtly disguised initially as a post-humanist space adventure. But because Roberts is light on his feet and unpretentious in his evocation of literature here, and a lot of this book is about literature as much as it is about physics, this may well seem self-consciously metafictional in its atmosphere, but Lake is writing about writing, but it is still story. It's really good writing about writing, the kind of thing that you get in M. John Harrison, but it's still story at its best. It still entertains. It doesn't leave you behind. It carries you with it. It's peppered with literary references: Shakespeare, Descartes, Thomas Harris, as I've said, Lewis Carroll, the Bible, Jules Verne, Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber, and more. But it's still a hard SF physics story that will satisfy those of you who like the cutting edge of tech extrapolation while delighting with world building. And of course, it introduces the philosophy which Adam has delighted in bringing into SF since his earlier work, the Kantian elements of the thing itself, which I have here. And just to say, if you're looking for a hardcover of the thing itself, there isn't one. It was a trade paperback original. This is a first edition, one of the best SF novels published in the last decade, I think this century. So while he invokes Kant in the thing itself, in Hegel in The This, and this is probably his best book since The This. These are high points in the Robertsian canon. There's The This there in its first edition, marvellous book. This time in Lake of Darkness, he brings in a lot of ideas from Gilles Deleuze, the French philosopher who was born in 1925 and died in 1995. So he brings it more up to date. And Deleuze was interested in all sorts of things. He commented and wrote on a lot of other philosophers, but you can say that he focused a lot on identity, on difference, and metaphysics. He was interested in things like religion, ontology, and the unknowable and inexplicable. There is something both of Philip K. Dick and Christopher Priest in this. It's inventive, compelling, and jaded as I am with traditional SF, I absolutely loved this. I felt it sagged a little bit during the Vernian moment, but that was a very necessary sidebar, almost like a story within a story. It was really deeply necessary because it ties in with the physics in the book, which are dizzying and dazzling, and which I actually really enjoyed. So this has something for everybody. If you like hard SF, you like it. If you like literary SF, you like it. If you like postmodern SF, you like it. And it'll probably be my hardcover SF book of the year. I can't actually see me buying any more hardcover SF this year. There's nothing forthcoming which looks exciting enough. So if you only buy one new hardcover SF book at the moment, make it Lake of Darkness. We'll have a look now at the rest of my collection of Adam's works. Now, this isn't Adam's complete oeuvre, because he's written a lot of other things as well, lots of parodies. He's written non-fiction books, history of SF, there's a book on our feelings about the end of the world, lots of bits and pieces. But I think here we've got all the novels and short story collections which count as SF. We've also got another novel by him which came out last year, which I haven't read yet, which is a crime novel. I'm assuming that I haven't actually read it yet. The years slipped by without me. What I'm not going to do, I'm not going to show you in chronological order initially. I'm going to show you the wild cards first, And as I've said many times on the channel, and I'm going to say it again, The Thing itself, my favourite novel by Adam. If you look at my other videos, I talk about this. I think it's in some of my top 5s, top 10s, and it's absolutely brilliant and very funny. And it was only issued as a paperback original, which is an absolute shocking dropping of the ball by Gollancz. I will never ever forgive them. If there's a press out there who can do a hardcover edition with extra material, the Gollancz would license it out, somebody please do it, because we need a hardcover of this excellent, excellent novel. And that's from 2018. That's the first printing, by the way. Another book of Adam's not to get a hardcover edition is Adam Robots, his short stories. See what he does there, Adam Robots by Adam Roberts, and it's got a wonderful jacket. I think you'll agree with those 60s style robots that I was enamored of as a kid. The first edition of this was a royal format trade paperback, so it was the same size as the hardcovers you see behind you, or behind it I should say, and behind you robot, it's behind you. And that was the true first edition. I waited for the B format because I'm not really keen on trade paperbacks in that size, and because it wasn't a hardcover I wasn't fussed. I've not read this actually, but Adam hasn't produced a lot of short stories, and you can understand this because the markets aren't there these days, and he's a working academic as well, so you know I can see why he wants to plunge on with novels, so that's one to look out for. Then the book from last year which I mentioned earlier on, which is from Datura Press. And this sort of came out and didn't really seem to get a lot of attention. This is The Death of Sir Martin Malprelate. When I read it, which I might do soon actually, because it's been languishing on my shelf with my interesting books. I've got an interesting set of shelves. All my shelves are interesting, but that's a particularly interesting shelf. So I must look at that. So I say that's a paperback original, no hardcover. Looks like a crime novel. I suspect it has some speculative elements. We'll see. But interestingly, it wasn't published by Gollancz, which tells us quite a lot. Here's another wild card. This is the Solaris signed numbered limited edition slipcase set of 2 volumes of Off on a Comet by Jules Verne. Of course, that's not signed and numbered, but it also contains Splinter, which is a Vernian adventure by Adam, which I don't think this has ever been paperbacked. I'm sure there's no paperback. I think this is the only edition, and very, very handsome there. I think you'll agree. And as I said, there are only 1,000 of these. Really nice slipcase. And I haven't read that actually. I must read it. So if you're collecting Roberts, that's one to look out for, and quite a hard one to find now, because of course, as it was a signed numbered limited edition in a slipcase, it was pricey to begin with. Now, if there's any out there, I'm not certain. I've not researched it recently, but that's one to watch out for. Aside from his novels, Adam has produced a number of novellas, which are published largely by PS and Newcon. And let's have a look. I think this was the first of them. This is Park Polar, with introduction by Roger Levy, a rather neglected SF writer, who's well worth a look, and very nice. I think you'll agree. That I haven't read either. I have flicked through it. I haven't got to it yet. Then we also have Jupiter Magnified, with introduction by James Lovegrove, and these PS editions are signed, numbered, and usually they're sort of paperback equivalents. I can't recall if there are with these. They're out of print, I know that much. You can still get them. They might cost you a pretty penny though. And this is Imaginings Volume 9. Imaginings is a series of short story collections. There's a Nina Allen one, there are various others. This is Adam's collection, Saint Rebor. I've read some of this. It's very good. Again, a signed limited edition. If you're not familiar with Newcon Press, do look at their site. Newcon are run by Ian Waits, the British SF writer. Never met him. Apparently a really good guy and interesting SF writer himself. So well worth a look. They do all sorts of marvellous stuff by international writers, but particularly by really good British writers of all stripes. You really must look at their website, and they do trade paperbacks as well. This is The Man Who Would Be Kling, which obviously riffs on the story The Man Who Would Be King by Rudyard Kipling, in his title at least. Does it riff it in other ways? Well, you have to read to find it for yourself. I really enjoyed this. This was a great fun novella, and I'm a huge fan of that Kipling story, it has to be said, and it's a rather good film of it as well. But I'm not going to tell you too much about this because I think you should seek it out for yourself, really. The Man Who Would Be King, what a crazy title. Finally, among Adam's novellas from Newcon is The Lake Boy, the most recent one, and this has affinities and connections with and to the thing itself. It has an historical setting, this bizarre boy that appears in this rural locale in Cumbria. I think it's in the 19th century from what I recall, and that's a good one as well. And if you like the thing itself, this is the one you should go for because it has similar conceptual connections to it and to the things which come up in the thing itself. I showed you and talked about the first 7 Adam Roberts novels in my video review of The Land of the Headless, which is the 7th one here, and I'm not going to show you them again in detail. They are Salt, On, Stone, which I would recommend for beginners. That is one with some great space opera elements, lots of literary elements, and it's absolutely fantastic bravura bit of work. Not that the ones before it are for slouches anytime they're good. Polystorm, The Snow, and Gradisil, which I was reading at the time that I reviewed Land of the Headless. That's the only one I've DNF'd, and it's a bigger book than the others. As you can see, it's much bigger than all the others, and it went off on a tangent, and I usually like that in a novel, especially a novel like Adam's. And in Lake of Darkness, which I've just reviewed, I talk about the way that it does go tangentially, and that's something that the mainstream writer Paul Auster, who died earlier this year, does, which I love. But I was finding that it was a bit too long for me, so maybe it's my bad and I'll go back to it. And as I say, Land of the Headless I reviewed in a separate video. I'll put a link at the end, and that certainly has a lot of links to Lake of Darkness, and there's a lot of religious satire in it, and I really enjoyed it. These are all first editions, first printings, of course. And moving on, this is probably Adam's best known novel until the thing itself, which is growing more and more famous, largely because I've been trying to convert everybody in the country to it for the last 6 years. I sell loads of it where I work. But Yellow Blue Tibia came out in 2009, and as Kim Stanley Robinson said, it should have won the Booker Prize. And it's set in Stalin's Russia, and it's about a plot that Stalin sets up with this scientist to convince the Americans that there are flying saucers. And it's a really good social satire. I'm not going to say any more about it. It's probably the Roberts you've read if you've just read one. Very, very funny, thoroughly enjoyable, and what a stunning looking book. Look at that Soviet livery, beautiful. Then we have Swiftly, Stories That Never Were and Might Not Be, in Nightshade Books, which is an American publisher who specialise in, they're not exactly limited editions, they do a lot of really good stuff though. I really like Nightshade. They published my friend Tom Toner. And this was Adam's first short story collection, and Swiftly has not been published over here, so this is one to look out for, and it's pretty uncommon. Really beautiful looking book, it has to be said. I've not researched the Roberts market recently to see what's out there. I think some of them are still quite easy to come across. This is probably going to be more difficult, but it's a real gap filler for the collector. Then we have Swiftly, a novel. Yes, 2 books with the same title. One of them a short story collection and one of them a novel. Totally different. And this is the Gollancz edition. Swiftly is still available in paperback in the UK. So for those of you who are saying, oh, there is a paperback of Swiftly, you're probably talking about the paperback of this. And I think you'll agree that's really, really beautiful. And Swiftly is a punning, recursive SF novel. The Swift refers to Jonathan Swift, and it's a sequel to Gulliver's Travels. What more can I say? I can't think of anybody more suited to writing recursive SF novels based on proto-SF, the SF that comes before Frankenstein. And Swiftly really is a lark, and I absolutely loved it. Maybe I'll review it on the channel sometime. Beautiful book, as you can see. Then we have New Model Army, A New Model Army is still available in paperback in the UK, but it's print on demand, so it's about £14. It's quite expensive. And of course, the New Model Army was Cromwell's army he put together when the whole thing kicked off in the Civil War between the Royalists and the Parliamentarians, and the Parliamentarians weren't really pulling it together, and they suffered a humiliating defeat. So Cromwell got his New Model Army together to crush the Royalists, which ended up in the beheading of the king. And I know we're veering off into history now, it's a very significant moment. And this has its debts in medievalism too, which is earlier period, because it's about a being called Pantagruel, which reminds me of Rabelais' Gargantua and Pantagruel, who are giants, and the term Rabelaisian means sort of rollicking, rumpeting, whatever rumpeting means, and sort of very irreverent stories of earthiness. And New Model Army is really good. I really recommend it. It's a neglected book in the Roberts canon, so watch out for it, get it on order. And as it says, in the future, war will be everyone's choice. Then a utopian novel. We mentioned the utopias in Lake of Darkness, By Light Alone. And By Light Alone postulates a future Earth where there is no hunger anymore, because people can photosynthesize the food they need through their hair. And unfortunately, again, there's a worm in the apple, and there's possibly murder and revolution. And I sell a lot of copies of By Light Alone, and I love that title. I think it really stands out, By Light Alone. It's simple, and yet it has incredible resonance. And again, as you see, a beautiful, beautiful book. These later Roberts you can still pick up sometimes. They're getting harder to find in good nick. I would say, if you've not read Adam before, this would also make a great first starting point. I sell it all the time to new readers in my job. And then The Stained Glass Savagery of Jack Glass, the story of a murderer. Shades of Bester here, of Gully Foyle, of The Demolished Man, of Tiger, aka The Star's My Destination. And this is about a interstellar murderer. It's almost got the feel of a cozy crime novel as well, which I know sounds strange. It's got that sort of whole thing from the English detective novel, and it merges it with space opera. And this won the Arthur C. Clarke Award, I think. It would say that on the paperback. And really, really gorgeous. And again, a really popular Adam Roberts book, a book I sell a lot. Alongside Yellow Blue Tibia, By Light Alone, The Thing Itself, this is one of the more popular ones. So it's another great space to jump on, especially if you like a unique take on crime fiction. And I just have to show you the rear of the jacket there because it's so beautiful. And there's praise there from The Independent, SFX and the Financial Times, who says, you know, basically that his sentences are every bit as good as McEwan's or Ishiguru's. He's certainly better than McEwan. Ishiguro has something quite special. I do like Ishiguro a lot. Adam as good? Adam is probably cleverer, and I think that's an important thing for an SF writer. We move past 20 Trillion Leagues Under the Sea, which is a fantastic Vernian romp, which I really recommend as well. I really enjoyed that book. It's so fun and so inventive. Onto Bete, which of course is French for beast, for animal. And this is about the idea of this is really quite something. Animal rights activists install AI chips into the bodies of animals, and it goes from there. So this is about animal rights, and you'll also find some parallels with Animal Farm by George Orwell. Another cracking one. And as we're coming up closer to Adam's kind of super renaissance from The Thing Itself onwards now. The first of Adam's only series, The Real Town Murders. I think Gollancz probably pushed him in this direction. I don't know if that's true. That's my theory. And obviously it's a crime novel set in the future, Virtuality, and these did reasonably well. I actually haven't read them. I've been meaning to, but I haven't got round to them, and I'm actually put off because they're a season. Not that I think they'll be bad, I think they'll be really good. It's just the idea of them as a series doesn't excite me as much as the singletons that Adam's been producing since this. But he always wrong-foots me, and he always is a satisfying and interesting read. As I say, I've only DNF'd one, and I think that's my bad, not his. Here's the sequel to The Real Town Murders, By the Pricking of Her Thumb, and this is about obsessions with Stanley Kubrick. Somebody has been murdered, but nobody is quite sure who has been murdered. It could be one of any number of people. And as ever, I'm looking forward to reading that, and I'm sure it'll be really great stuff. So that's By the Pricking of Her Thumb. And these are, of course, available in paperback as well. This is This is probably Adam's best novel since The Thing itself. I think it's dazzling, it's audacious, it's challenging, and at the same time it's really inventive and funny. I can't say enough good about it. I did review it on the channel. I'll try and put a little link to that review up there. I reviewed it amongst a load of other books, and it sort of outshone all of them. Really good stuff. Adam's penultimate book before Lake of Darkness was Purgatory Mount, and I really enjoyed Purgatory Mount. I think Richard at Vintage SF DNF'd it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very accessible. There's a young female protagonist, bags of ideas, and it's a good entry point if you're not used to the sort of high concept thing that he does. But I thought it was excellent. So that's a look at Adam Roberts' works. I think we've covered or shown you most, if not all, of the SF works there. If you've not read him, please do. As I say, I've given you a few ideas for entry points, and I'll put a link into the review of Land of the Headless at the end, which is very in-depth review. And get out there and read his work. He is the last great hope of British SF and of SF that relies on singletons. When it comes to novel of ideas, Adam is our man, and he writes beautifully. The only one of his novels I haven't shown here is his historical novel, which was based on an unfinished screen treatment by Anthony Burgess, and I did have that, and I've passed it on regretfully because of lack of space, because the way it's going I can only hang it to my SF, and that's very much writing about writing, but he captured the Burgess style very, very well indeed, and that was published by my friend John Mitchinson at Unbound, and I'll pop a picture of that up at the end as we go into the credits. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, super thanks, all that stuff, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.